Our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.
Shows What You Know, your television podcast. Bringing in the new year. A couple weeks late, but we're still bringing it in. It's a new year. It's a new us. New shows, new horizons, new optimism. I'm Jim from Las Vegas.
I'm Jacob from Sweden, and I'm looking forward to all sorts of new shows like Scrubs and Malcolm in the Middle in 2026.
Yes.
If we're lucky, we might even get Buffy. No, that's more of a 2027 type show. That's what I always said about it. But sure, look, we're here to wrap things up as well. We're here to look back at 10 years of Stranger Things and say, what was that about? We're here to talk about the new show, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, because what is it, 2012? It's Game of Thrones again. Every show is an old show, or maybe it's a game, because there's also Fallout. There's all sorts of television shows coming out for us to talk about, and I, for one, can't wait. Welcome to 2026. How are you doing in this year of our Lord, Jim?
Ooh, I'm doing amazing. And you know what? You called it Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm never going to call it that. It's always going to be the Adventures of Dunk and Egg. I don't even know if the books are called The Adventures, but I'm adding that. That's my little addition to it. But Dunk and Egg, The Adventures of Dunk and Egg.
You know, I respect it. I feel like I think it's the Tales of Dunk and Egg, but Adventures
close.
is good too. And honestly, I think that definitely was the working title, and someone was just like, we have to make people understand it's Game of Thrones. We have to have to put some words in there that are Game of Thrones words, such as Night, Kingdom, Seven Kingdoms. And they did put all those words. But no, I respect that. We can call it Dunk and Egg, The Adventures of.
And I'm going to call my shot right now. I think we get Buffy by the end of the year. I'm thinking Buffy I'm probably wrong, but I wonder if they're going to try to sneak it in Halloween season, baby. Let's go. New season of Buffy. If they were smart, they would do this, by the way.
And then another season of Buffy next Halloween the year after. They're going week to week. They're doing Monster of the Week. You sounded very optimistic over here, Jim. We'll get into it. We'll talk about it. I would love that. But hey, I think that's too optimistic, but I did not realize Scrubs is coming out a month from now. You know, that was always like Scrubs. They were like, Scrubs is coming back. And I'm like, I'm sure it is in 2 or 3 years. And it's here. It's happening. So, Buffy could be here soon.
Yep, we got new Scrubs. Like you said, we got all of our favorite shows from when we were young. It makes me feel like I'm young again. So you know what? I'll allow it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point. To lull us into this forever childhood where we forget that we can't afford mortgages. But let's not worry too much about it, Jim, and let's just fucking get into it. And I think top billing, most important thing, well, we got to look back, like I said, on the past 9.5 years of a certain show and give our final thoughts.
Ooh, yes.
Final thoughts. These are some final thoughts.
Final thoughts. It's been quite a journey, Stranger Things. We did start out as StrangerThingsPodcast.com. We always bring that up, I feel, but like it was kind of the catalyst where that show was on the horizon, and I was like, "Hey, Jacob, I think initially I was like, oh, Better Call Saul was a show, and I was like, oh, I'd love to do maybe a podcast on that, but it never nothing really came from it. And then I was like, oh shit, there's this other show, Kids on Bikes, 80s. No one's talking about it. Jacob, do you want to talk about Stranger Things? And that's kind of where Shows What You Know came from. And it's been quite a journey since then. I do feel like we've got a lot to catch up on. We talked about did we talk about the first batch episodes?
We did. And actually, our first couple of episodes of Shows What You Know came out a few weeks or months, maybe, I suppose, at this stage before Stranger Things, which makes me realize 2026 is also 10 years of Shows What You Know.
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
By June or July, anyway. We'll find the exact date. We'll do a celebration. But yeah, 10 years. Don't let this is episode 39 fool you. This is the reboot, just like Scrubs.
Reboot, yeah.
We rebooted it 2 years ago. There's shitloads more than 39 episodes at showswhatyouknow.com. But strangerthingspodcast.com, it just didn't take off. So here we are talking about everything else except we keep coming back to Stranger Things. And you know what? Starting out with this chat, I have to start by giving you props, because I remember you saying when we discussed the finale of season 2, which you can find at showswhatyouknow.com, you had your finger on the pulse, Jim. You saw what was coming not just for Stranger Things, but for the entire Netflix ecosystem. There's this scene in the finale of season 2 where Eleven is blasting the gate down in the lab and she's closing it. And you called out the excessive use of flashbacks in this scene and in this season, where they're flashing back to, some stuff from the previous season, but also just stuff from this season, things that literally had just happened in the same episode to try to build some emotional heft. And I think I poo-pooed you at the time. But not only were you right, you also knew what was to come. In this era, I'm not just talking flashbacks. Everyone knows I'm critical of flashbacks in general. But I'm talking about the constant over-explanation of everything. And a lot has been made of Stranger Things in particular, because it gets pretty cartoonish in this last season, where they're constantly pulling out items. And, you've all seen the TikToks. This is Vecna's dick, and this is and they're holding a banana, and we're going to do this.
Dude.
They do it like every episode, and I think that's just an expression of the bigger problem which is the complete over-explanation, which was just starting to happen there in 2017 in season 2, and you knew it was coming. So well done, Jim, because you really knew what was what sort of problems we'd be dealing with a decade later.
Well, and even I don't mind like explanations, but when everything's just a lazy, like letting the air out of a balloon. Is that a Community? There was there was a show that did a goof on this too, because it's even going back to like Star Trek, because they always have to have this thing where they say a thing and then someone has to be like, well, let's dumb it down for everybody. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate that, but when you do it constantly, and not only that, but you also have people constantly walk by a thing and someone will, buckle their belt and they'll be like, that's it. It's like a big belt that we wrap around the upside down and we squeeze it until Vecna pops out. It's like, shut up, stop.
And you know what? That is cool when you do it once a season like it's supposed to be, and not twice an episode.
And multiple characters having different epiphanies.
Yeah.
But I do remember that season finale. I remember that was so bizarre with the multiple, it was flashbacks to scenes that were minutes ago. And I mean, We've heard these rumors multiple times recently over the past few years about how Netflix has a mandate to have characters speak the plot multiple times because they do assume that people are on their phones. It was recently just verified again by Matt Damon, who was doing some press for their new Netflix movie, The Rip, and he was saying that they usually, because he's like, we did an action movie. Usually in an action movie you have a opening action scene, you have an action scene in the second act, and then you save your big thing for act 3. And he's like, but Netflix is telling you no, can we get a big thing within 5 minutes, and can we constantly have people say the plot, because we want people to stick around and watch this goddamn thing. Come on.
The exact quote you just read, I have pulled up here, so well done. We're on the same page, because we've seen reports and people talking about it, but it's just vindicating to see people actually say it out loud, because it's been, if you pay attention and if you care about writing, and if you watch a show and you're not on your phone, you're gonna notice that this is what they're doing, because I know we go on about it a lot, but it truly ruins shows. It's almost as bad as the whole taking one plot and stretching it out into 10 episodes or 8 episodes or whatever. So it's worth highlighting, because it's one of the things that drags Stranger Things down. But I just wanted to get that out off the bat. But let's chat generally about Stranger Things 5 now that we have it finished. Where are you landing, Jim? Positives, negatives? What do you think?
I mean, I thought it was just goofy overall. There's something about the show, there's something about the vibe and the characters that did keep me on, keep me watching. So I have to give credit to that. I mean, again, it's something that, I'm sure a lot of people my age that grew up in that time, you always had, if you were an aspiring writer, you always had this idea of I'm going to bring that back. I'm going to bring back the Amblin kids on bikes going on an adventure. So maybe some of it's just jealous that the Duffers were able to do it. But then it's just, I mean, like, I don't want to just be this guy that complains the whole time, but it's like there's just so many members in the cast, just like too many. There's goofs on it. Other people are picking up on it. There's that like scene. I mean, Will's coming out scene, which I don't really have a problem with. It's more so the shot when we have 16 people in the frame and they're all like huddled around.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's still flourishes, obviously. Like, it's still fun to have that throwback vibe, kids on adventure. I still think the actors, the cast is really good. They're fun to watch. The characters are fun to watch. So there's some good stuff there, but it just, it rubbed me the wrong way ever since they went back on the cliffhanger. Even though it's a classic TV thing, but season 4's cliffhanger, they quickly like went back on that and had to spread out like a whole new season of television. And
although it didn't satisfy you that the town was quarantined, that wasn't enough for you, even though you could just drive in and out apparently.
Yeah. And then when it's this absurd, giant fight with a giant monster, I'm kind of just checked out. I'm like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. On one hand, I can understand it. I can understand if you're looking at it, even though I'm an outsider, I'm not big into D&D. You'd have to school me on if this is this a natural progression? If this was, say, a D&D campaign where it would have to come to this point where the team is now fighting this gargantuan monster.
It's pretty common, yeah. That's it.
Okay.
But also, that's also my writing. I always love having a big Godzilla fight at the end, even if it makes no sense. So I can't hate on it as
that's
such.
What I mean.
But yeah, it felt very easy. A lot of teleporting up on cliffs. Where are all the hordes, like the minions? Because they were such a big deal for the first 4 seasons. You talked about this before. The Upside Down feels really undangerous because there's no Demogorgons or Demidogs or anything like that. They only show up and kill extras. They never touch anyone in the main cast. And then in the finale, like in the actual final fight, light spoilers, right? We're not going to get too specific, but like, where are the minions? There are no minions, and that was a problem.
Now, I think part of it too is like, I've thought this show's been kind of borderline bad for a long time. So I've come to terms with that. I think a lot of people are realizing it's bad. So it's more of a shock. And I had a similar thing with Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
When Game of Thrones was going into its last season, I rewatched it and I was like, this show's kind of bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great stuff, but there's some bad stuff. There's some bad stuff even kind of early on when you rewatch it. So again, I mean, I don't want to be this asshole talking about how bad the show is because it's not terrible. I definitely stuck around and watched the whole thing. But I didn't like freak out. I mean, obviously you've seen the freakouts where people thought there was a secret episode. Like
I have not, but you've told me about this sort of thing. I can imagine.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, because it got really big to the point where it was being reported by mainstay media like Variety and Hollywood Reporter were talking about it.
Is this
like
the Bylers or just in general people?
A lot of it definitely came from the Bylers because the Bylers were very unsatisfied with where we left. They do feel that the Duffers did a lot of queer baiting and strung them along, making them feel like because if you look at the Bylers, the Bylers pop up in my feed all the time. Maybe that says something about me.
It does.
Maybe I'm really a Byler.
Which is so funny. Even that that, like on this show, we usually do a thing where I quiz you about the ships, and you're here telling me. Because obviously, if you don't know, this is the people who really wanted Will and Mike to get together, I guess, and that's the name of the ship, the Bylers. So
because they've had breakdowns on scenes and colors in the scenes and what that could mean and how they were hinting at. This was, an unrequited love that they were slowly doling out. Like, there's a lot of interesting breakdowns. And I've seen some people defend the Stranger Things fan base to be like, they're so creative. And it's like, kind of. But again, I'm the meme of James Franco in that Coen Brothers movie where he's got the noose around his neck. And he's like, first time. I mean, this is me being an old timer. Like, I've been through TV fandoms and I've seen the toxic cycle that can build up from these fandoms, even going back to like Buffy and all that stuff. So it's like, it is nice that they love the show and they look for these clues, but all they do is they build themselves up to be let down when their headcanon is not what happens. So yes, this was the widespread thing. It started with the Bylers. It spread more into people just being ultimately let down with the finale.
Yeah.
They were convinced that on the 12th we were going to get a secret episode. Like we were getting a new because they found this thing where one of the scenes when they're in like that basement or whatever in the Upside Down, and they like turn a crank to turn the power on.
Mm-hmm.
In an early episode, there's a red arrow that like when you turn the crank, it shows that you're turning the power up. In a later episode, when they do it again, it's not red anymore; it's just gray. And then they point to how what's the little Wheeler sister's name? I forget, but she points out the reason why she finds out that she's in.
Oh, Holly, is it?
Yeah, when Holly's in Vecna's mind, she looks at the I forget what it's called, the spinning thing in like a kid's playground, and it's a different color, and that's how you realize that you're in Vecna's mind, and you can find a portal there. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, the writing's bad because we're actually in Vecna's play the whole time, and Mike's gonna realize they all are in the wrapped in Vecna's thing with the stuff down their throat. They brought up how Will brings up getting milkshakes at the hardware store or whatever. And they're like, it's a hardware store. You don't get milkshakes there. You only got milkshakes there when Vecna was young. And also there's a point where they mess up Will's age at one point. They say he was 11 when he wasn't 11. Like, they found all the continuity mistakes that the Duffers just made because it's a job. Yeah. We're doing a thing. And they're like, no, these mistakes were on purpose, Jacob. Yeah. And Vecna actually won, and we're in his mind.
Okay, that sounds like great fan fiction. I would never, like, I'm genuine. I would not be. I hate being told it's not that deep. Right? You and I would hate that sort of thing. I have a YouTube channel where I overanalyze stuff. We have 10 years of this podcast talking about TV shows, right? So I don't want to be the one who says it's not that deep, but I've seen it a few times, this thing where people, like you said, specifically are trying to explain why something isn't bad, and they are so emotionally attached to the story, which is great, but you have to jump through hoops of numerology and astrology and color theory to try to figure out why something's it couldn't possibly be happening, because that would be bad. Even in the first part of this season, when we discussed it an episode or two ago, I was like, surely Mr. What's-It can't be Vecna, because that would be too obvious and bad. And it was Vecna, because it was an obvious and bad choice. And that's going to happen sometimes. But that's very interesting that you've seen so much of it.
Even to the point where people like start lining up timestamps, like, oh, at this timestamp, someone says this. And let me let you know, people out there, Redditors, no creator has ever gone through the painstaking ability to line up timestamps. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe someone will do it down the line. A Redditor's going to get a TV show and they'll finally do it. But think of all the moving parts that go into making an episode. They're not going to do this ridiculous thing that no one's ever going to do, to line up a timestamp with like a season 2 episode to a season 5 episode. I'm sorry, it ain't happening.
But if you play Dark Side of the Moon at the same time, Jim, it means Will and Mike are going to kiss. I mean, maybe Mr. Robot did that, but that's because they weren't paying attention to the plot. You have to, if you want to do that sort of thing, or what was that show? Legion. If you want to do that sort of thing, you have to just intentionally focus only on that and make a bad show. It's kind of like a Westworld thing as well, like where they would care more about that sort of thing than actually writing a good show, and then the shows end up being even worse than Stranger Things.
And again, to try to throw some more praise in there, like, because I don't want to just shit on the show, but I do think, on one hand, I'm very, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, so it's not just a Stranger Things thing. I'm so over the full circle endings these days. Like, I'm so sick of every show or movie series or whatever being like, we're going back to the start, baby. Like, Avengers has to be like, we're going back to the first Avengers. And now, saying that, I do like how they end the show. And people are like, no, they've had the ending plan for years. And it's like, yes, I do believe that. But when they say that, they mean that moment, which has nothing to do with the plot and everything to get to that moment. So
you're talking about, so again, sorry, I just want to say, not really a big spoiler. If you're worried about spoilers, obviously you probably already watched Stranger Things, but we're not going to go into nitty gritty of plot. But you're talking about them playing D&D in the basement, right? Like that was good. Yeah, that was good.
And it's it symbolizes, again, like it's barely symbolizing anything. He's shutting the door on his childhood, and that's something we've all been through. It's great to see. It's a smart choice for an ending. It's easy to see that someone had that. You could predict, like, oh, this is how we're going to end the show. Now, how we get to that point, that shit's all up for grabs. I don't believe that they knew about Vecna or they had all this other stuff. They try to say that they knew about the Abyss and all that. I don't really buy any of that shit.
They very clearly retconned so many things.
Yes,
so that doesn't make sense.
And
but
again, it's not even a bad thing if that happens. That's how writing works. You find your story, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I do appreciate that Mike truly did nothing this season besides run a good game of D&D. That truly the hardest challenge faced by any of these children. And getting the crew together to actually finish a campaign, wow, that would have been more challenging than any of the other things they faced. And ending on D&D was always going to get me. Like, I think I have so much nostalgia wrapped up in it because I think the first time I saw Dungeons and Dragons was in E.T., and I was like, what are they doing? This is so cool looking. I want to learn what this is. And at the same time, I was starting to play tabletop role-playing games and that sort of thing. And then Stranger Things, obviously, that's kind of just an E.T. reference, but they build on it, and they do that really well. So ending on D&D was always going to get me, and it did get me really good, obviously, because I love that sort of thing, and I love when a story in D&D parallels real life and all that sort of shit. So that was good. But hey, Jim, I have a long list of nitpicks. Do you want to do them real quick?
Well, I was going to ask, because I don't know if you said kind of your overall thoughts just in general, or what?
Yeah, overall thoughts is it was bad, unfortunately. But that was kind of the caveat of last 10 minutes. Really good. Really enjoyed it. But there's a lot of stuff that doesn't hold. A lot of people comparing it to Game of Thrones. And here's just a fun fact, by the way, that might blow your mind. Game of Thrones ran for 8 years. Stranger Things has gone for 10 years. So Game of Thrones made 8 seasons in 8 years, and it took Stranger Things 10 years to do 5 seasons. That's just kind of a state of the industry type thing. But yeah, just a fun fact.
So wait, Game of Thrones did keep that one a year going?
They did until the last season, last 2 seasons, but which is mind-boggling, really.
That is mind-boggling,
now. But yeah, it started 2012, and they released a season every year until the last few seasons. Versus Stranger Things, of course. Actually, yeah, they were kind of consistent at first, but anyway. A lot of people comparing it to the Game of Thrones finale specifically, and some people even doing so positively. I saw one with 19,000 upvotes on Reddit. That's how you end a popular show, and it's like a Simpsons meme of a Stranger Things slapping Game of Thrones, and I'm like, what?
No.
Huh?
No.
I don't think that's the popular take. I think there's a lot of comparison because there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of fake out deaths. At one point, Steve is falling to his death. They cut to black, and you're like, what? It's clearly not happening, and then it's back and he's fine, and they hold the cut to black for seconds. It's really toothless, which was a big problem with Game of Thrones in the last few seasons. So that's but I would say the Game of Thrones finale was worse because they've truly landed nothing, and they ruined a lot of what came before it. Versus this, as you said, the show's not been fantastic for a few seasons, and at least there were some good glimmers. Although Game of Thrones had more consistent highs, I would say, as well. More highs in Game of Thrones, and the fall at the end was really bad. Versus here, it's been up and downs the whole time. But even in this, there are things I really like. I didn't get much out of Dustin and Steve fighting endlessly, but tell me you didn't tear up when Dustin's when he breaks down and is like, I can't lose you too. You tell me that didn't get you. That was, I don't know if it's just he's a better actor than the rest of them, or it's just they're able to deliver on some of those moments. But for every moment like that, they have 10 moments of Murray, which is the guy with the beard, who there's nothing believable about him, and he's not funny. He keeps saying schnookums. It wasn't funny the first time.
Funny, no.
The show
even the whole thing in that same realm of when Steve and Dustin were fighting, and then we had Nancy and
on
Jonathan,
the table and the dripping,
and then it just stops for no real reason except they don't want to do anything. Don't want anything to happen. But I'm sorry, this is your nitpicks. No,
and that's actually a good moment as well. Where at least they didn't get engaged or whatever. I guess they're kind of at least the show is we can see they don't have any chemistry. Let's just break them up. So that was at least the right outcome, even if the way they did it wasn't great. Yeah, they make a big deal out of Vecna finding out where Max is, which hospital room Max is, through Will's mind. Like, he hacks Will's mind and like, oh, now I know where Max is. Like, he couldn't have found that out a million different ways. He's constantly walking around in people's minds and like spying on the real world. The show really wants us to care about this guard with the fucked up face that Eleven tortured in the first part, the first season. He shows up a lot. Don't know what that's about. But probably one of the worst moments for me, it pissed me off so much. It's when Max and Holly are trying to escape from like the illusion world, right? Whatever they want to call it. And they finally get through all of Vecna's memories, and they're in this like place with like spire, this place that looks like an AI generated version of hell, and it just has spires and portals and things. And they see the portal and they have the way out, or Max has the way out. Holly can't follow. They stop and have a long conversation. And Vecna has already turned up twice in this exact place just as they're about to get out. But they know he's coming for them. They stand and recap the entire plot to each other, and I was just like, fucking Netflix, because sometimes you can excuse it when they're just kind of repeating something that happened, but I was genuinely like, I was getting more, my blood pressure was just increasing with that scene, because it felt like a 10-minute conversation they had there. And then just have a good hug, have a cup of tea, hang out for a while. And Vecna didn't show up because plot-wise we have to have this conversation, and there was just a lot of that undangerous bullshit stuff going on, unfortunately. And as far as final fight stuff, I love having a big Godzilla monster, but it really felt pretty unthreatening.
No, I fully agree. A lot of people have been talking about that scene that you're talking about too, by the way, with Max and Holly, and how it just, because it really, everything just stops. It completely releases, takes any tension away. It's things they could have talked about ahead of time, but they think they're like dropping a bomb on us by being like, well, no, Holly can't go. You thought Holly was be able to go this whole time? So I assume you don't even know that a lot of this ties into the Broadway show as well. Like
no,
the whole
you've
thing
told me.
with the guy.
I didn't even know there was a Broadway show. You've been telling me little bits from it, but what's that about?
The whole thing with the guy in the briefcase is kind of hinted at in the Broadway show. The whole thing with Vecna. What's Vecna's real name? I forget. Because it's like all Vecna's backstory, and that's in the Broadway show. So it's not like you have to see it, but I guess it does add a little bit to it, because they kind of because they kind of throw in this like out of nowhere. They don't like redeem him, but there's like a small hint that he's also a victim. Like he could have easily, if he didn't have, if Will didn't have the people around him that he has, Will could have been another Vecna type deal is almost what they're getting at. And the fact that Henry didn't have that support system, he went down this dark path of the Mind Flayer or whatever, which I didn't want any of that. Just I don't want the Mind Flayer. I don't want anything. Just make Vecna was cool. Season 4 is when the show started to get really good again, in my opinion. Just stick with that, but whatever. It is what it is. It's over now.
Yeah, it's just that kind of, how am I supposed to care when there's so much retconning, where in season 2, the Mind Flayer was the big bad, and there was no secret like, oh, it's actually this one dude. That didn't exist yet. And then in season 4, they're like, no, it was actually this dude Henry's the big bad. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. That's cool. Yeah, Henry was a pretty good villain. And then in season 5, they reverted again. They start the season with a flashback to an earlier, to like season 1, where Vecna has to appear with young Will and pump him full of spores or what have you. And he's like, we're going to build so many beautiful things together. So they're really literally going back and being like, no, Vecna was there the whole time. He was pulling all the strings so that they can reverse it again and be like, actually, it was the Mind Flayer. And I'm like, well, that's what we thought until the start of this season. So it's not going to be super shocking. Although it is, what I would have liked in that scene, the flashback where Vecna, he's scared of his own childhood. He doesn't want to go see it. In that scene, we have Will kind of hacking into him. Will should have taken over Child Vecna and fought him so he could literally fight his inner child. And now we're getting into some storytelling type. Now we're getting into some Jungian psychology over here, where he's actually embodying his younger self, and they fight. But no, they fought a big spider instead. So that was pretty cool too, I guess.
And I should mention, I mean, Jacob didn't even know about this, but there is a documentary on the making of the last season. It's on Netflix. It's called One Last Adventure. Let me just double check on that.
It's called One Last Adventure of Dunk and Egg.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah, One Last Adventure, The Making of Stranger Things 5. Now, a lot of people have been focusing on, I mean, the documentary is very clear that they don't have the script for the finale done as they start production.
I think I saw some clips of this, like a montage of I know, we know what's going to happen. We just haven't written it when they start filming.
And I don't hold too much. I mean, again, that does stink, but also I don't really hold them too much to that because, again, I think it's not so much, they kind of still knew the beats. They just didn't have the like actual script. And they mentioned that because they're filming the stuff that's in his mind that's out in like the woods and the scenery and everything like that, and they're like, well, we need to shoot this now because it's springtime or whatever, so we need these scenes. But I mean, number one, take a drink every time you see Matt Duffer wearing a movie t-shirt or movie or television show t-shirt. He's always wearing like an Alien or Terminator or like whatever 80s thing. He's always got a t-shirt on. It is one of those things that again, to go back to Game of Thrones, it's like I feel, well, there's a few reasons why they would do this. Netflix obviously knows Stranger Things is one of their biggest properties. It's another way to milk some stuff out of it a little bit, make it seem epic, and get another thing to put on their service. But I do think the Duffers have taken, like, this was probably a conscious effort that they wanted to get their names out a bit more and be thought of more as, say, like
auteurs.
Yeah, that's the exact word I was looking for. They want to become more of a brand, and like auteurs. So they wanted to put this out there, and I feel like it reminds me of the Game of Thrones guys, where it's kind of backfiring because people are really not reacting well to your final product. But I would say this is a great watch. I mean, especially for us, I think you would like it because at the end of the day, it's still fun to watch movies and shows being made. It's fun to watch the process. It's fun to watch a big group of people all come together for a common goal, because we get with like the set designers and stuff like that. And it's so funny because you could tell they're annoyed at the Duffers, because the Duffers will come in and they'll be like, we want these, like, they're talking about the inside of the Mind Flayer, and they're like, we want these like kind of like bloody walls and these like things sticking out of the ground, and it also kind of moves because they're in a spider, and then they'll get up and leave, and they'll be like, these guys want this done in like 4 months, like,
yeah.
I mean, and on one hand, they do talk a lot about, they're like, this is probably one of the last times you'll see something like this where we do have a lot of physical sets, like where sculpting styrofoam and painting it by hand, like, this is usually not how things are done. But in the Duffers' credit, they're using their pull and their weight to really be like, we want some of these scenes to be really like natural. It sucks when then you're in the abyss and everything looks like shit though still.
Yeah.
So
are you telling me the abyss was like real? Because it all looked like bizarro Windows background type stuff. Like, it did not look real at all.
The abyss wasn't, but the inside of the Mind Flayer was. They did build all those. Like, they had a massive set.
It's a shame they didn't do anything there. Like, they were there for they were only there for ominous shots, which genuinely could have been CG. It's just him hanging there dangling, and then they do a final fight that was extremely truncated and not very interesting. So it's a shame they didn't do anything in that set.
And also similar, because the Duffers kept doing all these exit interviews when episodes were air. Again, I think it's because they're trying to make themselves a brand. And all they did was like step in shit, and everything they said, people would just make fun of them for. And in the documentary, you might have seen this clip. It was going around. They're talking about episode 8, and someone does say, it's crazy if there's no Demogorgons there. Like, we need Demogorgons. And then he's like, do we? And like... He's like, I'm concerned there's Demogorgon fatigue. And it's like, first of all, motherfucker, if you were concerned about that, I've been sick of the Demogorgon since season 2, bro. Check the tapes. I've definitely been over the Demogorgon. But, everyone gets emotional. You get to see their last scenes. That's always fun to see. Like, they did shoot the D&D stuff last. So there's a lot of real emotion there when they're kind of putting their books up, because they are like, hey, this is a thing I've worked on. Like the kids, especially, since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good stuff to watch. It's interesting. They do kind of put themselves out there, and people are shredding them a bit for it, but I kind of admire it. I kind of admire that there's things they admit, like, hey, we're still figuring this out, or, we're still working on this because we got to work on this part here. So still a good watch, but it's really fun to see the way people react to it, especially the people that didn't enjoy the finale.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the thing about them making themselves a brand really makes sense because we reported, I guess, well, Variety reported, we signal boosted Variety in episode 036 of Shows What You Know, where the Duffers announced in August that their company Upside Down Pictures is leaving Netflix and they're signing a 4-year deal with Paramount to make movies, TV shows, streaming projects. And Paramount were like, yeah, you want to get stuff into theaters? We can get stuff into theaters. So it kind of, makes sense that they'd be trying to boost their brand and make sure that they're better set up than the Game of Thrones boys anyway, and I think so far they are, because for all of the criticism, people at least haven't fully slated it. It's kind of more of a mixed reaction, a divisive finale, which anything that generates conversation is actually a good thing in today's society. So I don't think Paramount will back out of this deal. I think they'll get to make whatever they want to make next. And also on the script thing, of course they didn't have the script ready at the start, Jim. How are they supposed to write one season of television in 3 years?
Yeah, one 8-episode season? Are you kidding me?
8 episodes of television in 3 years? Nobody could possibly figure out the plot that quickly. You can tell. You can tell they didn't have the script ready. That's the problem with the whole show, unfortunately.
The smartest thing the smartest thing Sean Levy did was he got his Star Wars movie in production before, I might have even said this before, he got his Star Wars movie in production before Stranger Things ended. So they didn't have the opportunity, like with Benioff and Weiss, like their movie wasn't in production yet. So after Game of Thrones bombed, they were just canceled their Star Wars movie. But no, Sean Levy, he's a hack, he's a piece of shit, whatever, but he's a smart businessman. He's like, we better get this fucking movie in production. I want this already money spent before the season ends, before the show ends, and they try to take it away from me.
Okay, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I just Googled it there. Are you talking about Star Wars Starfighter that comes out in 2027?
Yeah, with Ryan Gosling. Like, he's already deep in production before Stranger Things ended. So, and he was one of the main producers. I don't love him. He's very much a studio guy, at least from my understanding. He hasn't put out complete slop. Like, I still like some of his stuff, but like, cool.
He directed The Internship and and worked on the Pink Panther, the 2006 one, the best Pink Panther. Right? Yeah, I see what you're saying. But yeah, Stranger Things, man. Final thoughts. Here we are. Like it is an end of an era. And season 1 was really good, and they never recaptured it. And that's just how it goes sometimes. Most shows, if they're really great at the start, can't recapture it. And I would say season 4 was at least pretty good, and now it's dead.
Yeah. And again, the Game of Thrones parallels, I think, are very, very apt, because it's also, Game of Thrones was in a similar thing where I think the guys were like, look, we just got to end this, dude. Like, we can't wait around. Like, George R.R. Martin's not going to finish these books.
Yeah.
And this is taking forever. We're probably, again, thinking of their output, if they were putting it out essentially every year, they're probably getting sick of it. And they're like, we just need to finish this. And then with Stranger Things, it's like these kids are getting older. Everyone's already making the joke. We don't really have as much time to keep dicking around in this world. And how much more can we really do with the whole Upside Down? So, let's just wrap this shit up. On to the next. Wait for the spinoff that has something to do with the rock that they found. That's in the finale.
Can't wait, man. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah. That went on a little bit longer than we expected, but
what TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
Jacob, what have you been watching?
Well, you know what? I've been watching The Adventures of Dunk and Egg, specifically The first episode of this show was just released right before recording this, and we've both had a chance, I think, to sit down and catch up. And if you haven't heard of it, it's one of the Game of Thrones spin-offs. It stars this fella with a big Irish head because he is a big Irish man, Duncan the Tall, and you can tell he used to be a rugby player. And you know what? As soon as I flip this show on, I really like the look of it. It's got like beautiful landscapes, feels very fantasy, feels very like fairy tale-y almost, painterly, and everybody knows I like night shit, so it's no surprise that I really enjoyed it. But it's so different from Game of Thrones so far. I mean, granted, we've only seen one episode, but it's so different in that throughout that episode there's one guy and he's trying to get into a tournament, and that's it. There's not a lot of political intrigue, and there's not a lot of cutting back and forth between different parts of the realm, and the episode is 40 minutes long, which is, like, when I saw the runtime, I was like, how is this 40 minutes long? But honestly, it gets more done in 40 minutes than your average House of Dragon episode, because it's not cutting here and there. We follow one character, one narrative. He manages to be pretty likable. He's trying to get into a tournament, and I don't want to overstate it, but I really enjoyed it so far. What do you think about Dunk and Egg?
I actually really liked it too. I was fully surprised by the runtime, and because I didn't look at it as I started watching, and I was watching it, and in my mind I was like, oh, okay, he's gonna have his first loss. Like, I thought we were gonna be in the tournament and he was gonna lose, and that was gonna be how the pilot goes. Boy, was I wrong. Now I'm like, oh my God. Now this could be a good thing or a bad thing. Is this going to be a situation where we're spreading this out over X amount of episodes? They did release the runtimes. I don't know if this was recently, but like they're all about this. The next episode I think is like 36 minutes.
Okay.
But they're all in the range of like 35 to like 44 minutes or something from what I saw. A bunch of stuff. I don't want to say spoiled. Spoiled's not the right word. But like just skimming through some conversations, I didn't realize how tied into Game of Thrones this is. Even to the point where like someone brought up a scene, I guess, where Joffrey is flipping through the book and he's like 4 pages on Sir Duncan the Tall, like when he's just going through like the family histories or whatever. And then Egg might be someone who I didn't know who this was a person. That's a good or bad thing, because on one hand, I wish I didn't know that. Maybe it would be a surprise. On the other hand, you do kind of get that information out there, because I saw a lot of people's reaction and they was not good.
Really?
Stuff. Just because I think people have this expectation of like, oh, this is Game of Thrones. And this show's very different. Now, I welcome that. My mantra the past couple of years, whenever we've talked about Game of Thrones or the prequel, is I've been saying I don't give a fuck who's on the throne. You know what I mean? Like I'm over that at this point. Game of Thrones is done. I don't care about 1,000 years ago when they were fighting for the Iron Throne and all that shit. So I welcome that this is, yes, a hedge knight, which I never knew a hedge knight was a thing until watching this. So it really literally is, serving up kind of a buddy cop rollicking adventure that's a little funny. And, you get to see a guy squirt shit out of his ass right in the beginning. You also have like a little, I'm always about an adult and a little kid that have like this fun, like found family aspect of, the father figure that's trying to deny it, but then they're going to learn a thing or two from each other. Apparently there's other characters too that are like, I didn't realize one of the characters they're talking to is also... That character's been in both the prequel and the regular Game of Thrones as well. What? The one who he's trying to get, him to co-sign him. The one that the redhead. Apparently he is. I mean, I won't get into it yet, but
he can't be. But isn't this is like 100 years before regular Game of Thrones? I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but remember the guy? Isn't the guy with the one eye that was resurrected? Apparently that's him. At least that's what someone said. I don't know the lore of these books as much as other people do. Remember the guy?
That doesn't sound right. But you're right. His name is Dondarrion. Surely he's not Beric Dondarrion, though. No, it's. But yeah, no. Game of Thrones has a lot of deep lore and a lot of characters. So sorry, go on.
There's a popular tweet that says that this character's been played by 3 actors now. That's what they've said. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know the lore is you're right. It could be wrong. But again, like
he would be okay. His name is Manfred Dondarian, so he would be like an ancestor of the guy who loses his eye and gets resurrected. It's got to be. Maybe he appears in some flashback or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they're convinced it's the same character. I guess we'll have to look into this.
Oh, I'm sure there's theories. There's always theories about characters being the same characters. Yeah, that'd be it.
Because from my understanding as well, there's still some stuff left unsaid with these novellas, and George R.R. Martin has given the showrunner some unreleased stuff, and they're already talking about how like their vision might go a little different. So we're in a similar situation already. But either way, I'm getting way too ahead of ourselves. Yeah. I do like the vibe. I was a little surprised that for a pilot that not a lot does happen. So I do understand some people might come away a little let down. Like, I don't know if maybe this is a situation where maybe they should have released 2 episodes to at least kind of get people to care more, because outside of the vibes, I'm in it for the vibes. But if I was a Game of Thrones person, I'd be like, what the fuck? I don't care. Like, I don't care about any of this. Yeah,
well, we were Game of Thrones people, and I thought everyone just got that kind of... We all got that scared out of us by how badly Game of Thrones... I thought that was the thing that we were... all reformed Game of Thrones people who now understand that what we want is low fantasy, nitty-gritty texture and that sort of thing, not the sweeping epic stuff. But I guess if you're a big fan of House of the Dragon, that's like taking all the high fantasy intrigue type stuff and pulling that up to 11. So this really exists as in a contrast to House of the Dragon, taking the other side of Game of Thrones. And I think specifically for you never watched House of the Dragon, or you never got into it anyway, because it's all that shit you don't want. And that's why I wasn't too surprised, because we watched the trailer on this show and you were very positive, and I'm like, yeah, because this is the good shit. This is what we want out of Game of Thrones. I think the only potential negative I had was maybe they're overdoing it a little bit with them trying to be funny, trying to like have them talk in a little bit of a modern sort of cadence and stuff like that a little bit. But in general, I thought main guy's performance was good. The dynamic with the kid was good. And that's really all you need, because this entire season is going to be this tournament. I don't know that for sure, but just looking at the runtime and having a basic sense of how stories work, we're not leaving this tournament this season. I feel like there's only 5 episodes left. They couldn't release 2 episodes because it's only a 6-episode season and they're like 30 minutes each. So, I think it's a smaller story very, very intentionally, and I love that about it. So far, a big recommend from me.
My only nitpick was one of the actors. And again, I apologize that I'm terrible with character names, because I'm not huge into the lore anymore and I'm just getting back into it. But I think he was a Baratheon when he's the guy that's having the party where he's like, why the hell are you in my tent? And it's like, for supper. That actor, to me, took me out of it a little bit. And again, maybe this is a personal thing, but to me, he felt the most like a guy in a costume trying
I was thinking of him, when I said about the comedy, I was kind of thinking of him as well, All
right, I appreciate that. Maybe it's not just me then. And again, maybe that's just first episode. If he's a recurring thing, maybe he gets into the role or something. But it was just the only thing that was glaring to me. I was like, oh, this feels like some guy on YouTube made I'm going to make a Game of Thrones thing. Because he felt too modern. He looked too modern or something. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking, His cadence was just, which it's kind of interesting because it's a big contrast, right? Like having people in a fantasy setting, I think, after Lord of the Rings 25 years ago, we were all primed for like, oh, if it's fantasy, it has to be everyone talks very poetically and all that sort of thing. And then Game of Thrones was interesting because it kind of went against that and had more down-to-earth type folks. But this is very much, as you said, like it's like someone inserting themselves into a fantasy scene and acting like, oh, what's going on over here? I don't know. Like just kind of mumbling and walking around in a way that is funny in contrast, kind of, but with Duncan giving a more straight performance, it feels a bit strange. Although I liked some of it as well, to be honest. So you're right. It might all work out in the end, but we spend maybe a little too much time with that character just for the pilot.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, I'm on board. It does kind of intrigue me stumbling upon people discussing the full-on legacy and kind of these maybe larger than we think connections to the show that we already know. And again, I'm sure book people already know all this stuff. I know I'm not telling anything new. I'm just talking from the point of view of someone that's only watched the shows, but not House of the Dragon, but Game of Thrones, and now an episode of this. So it seems like a cool version of a prequel without overly relying on that stuff. Like, it's like nice if you know it, but it doesn't, at least at this point, maybe that'll change. At this point, it doesn't matter if you know it or not. It could just like flow over you. It's all about going through, following this character, these underdog characters, and how it's going to play out for them. So,
yeah. And for me, you know, I know I'm biased. Because, I mean, first of all, it's shot in Ireland. You can tell with all the hills and everything. That's Ireland right there. They're walking around, so that's nice. Also, I have such a soft spot for night-related stuff. You go to awesomepedia.org. There's a 1 hour and 30-minute documentary I made about the true history of knights, where I use A Knight's Tale as a jumping-off point to talk about knights. This literally starts the exact same way as A Knight's Tale. You know, the knight has died and the squire steps into his place. But they get the vibe. Obviously, it's fantasy, so it's different, but they get the vibe of it very right in that he has 3 horses. One's a destrier, one's a palfrey, one's for riding, one's for fighting, one's for a pack horse. And they even have someone say, like, a knight without a horse is no true knight at all, which is so true, because even the root of the word cavalry, chevalier, the word for knight, is a horseman. A knight is a horseman, and that is... if you lose your horse, that's way more important than losing your sword or whatever. But yeah, that fighting horse, he could sell that and live for a good while, like he was saying. So even just like that, those details and that texture, obviously it's a fantasy story, but it feels genuine in a way. And I'm way more interested in spending time down in the dirt with Sir Duncan the Tall than up in the tall castles with all the, you know, Valerian people and whatnot. So fuck.
Yeah,
that.
I agree. And I did see you mention that a lot of people, and I guess this is similar to even how Game of Thrones started, where people were saying a lot of the stuff is like right out of the book, like dialogue wise and stuff like that, which is probably a smart way to play it.
Yeah.
I guess maybe I know the showrunner was kind of quoted as saying he's made some small changes to like not make, I think he meant maybe Egg or something as dumb as he might be, or that or maybe Duncan doesn't think he's as dumb. Like, I guess the book is more about Duncan thinking Egg's so stupid and Egg being stupid a lot. So,
but maybe that's from his perspective. That would make sense, where Duncan's actually the foolish one.
Yeah. So I'm excited, but yeah, I saw a lot of just, you know, people going overboard. Like, this is the worst episode of television I've ever seen, because again, they think they're gonna see fucking dragons or battles and immediately. And I do appreciate the going for a different vibe. And it's a cool vibe that I'm into.
Well, there's other shows coming out, but you know what? We ain't got all day. Neither do you. Check out Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Don't check out Stranger Things, because you've already finished it. You know? Go to showswhatyouknow.com. Let us know what you want us to discuss. I was kind of thinking about talking about Fallout, but Fallout Season 2, 5 episodes are out of 8. And it feels like I have strong opinions that may or may not be confirmed. So you know what? I'm gonna hold on to that. I'm gonna nurse that, and then I'm gonna let you know next time if Fallout Season 2 manages to build successfully on the hype of the first season, or whether it all goes to shit. So far, it's pretty good, but not as good as I would want it to be. So
I need to. Well, that's good, because I haven't. It's one of those shows where I came off of Season 1 very positive. And then Season 2's premiered, and I haven't watched one yet. I haven't watched any of them. So
I'd say wait a week or two, and you'll be able to binge through the whole thing. So far, pretty good, but I'm also like, what are they going to manage to achieve this season? I don't know. Let's see. So we'll be chatting about that moving forward. There's all sorts of shows coming out. Got new Bridgerton. Are you excited for new Bridgerton, Jim? That's coming out end of this month. How exciting. We got How to Get to...
That's from Game of Thrones, right? That's also a Game of Thrones prequel?
Yeah. This one takes place in the 1800s, so it's a slightly different vibe, but yes, it's related. How to Get to Heaven from Belfast, Scrubs, of course. Looking forward, we got Young Sherlock, One Piece Season 2, The Boys, the 5th and final season. This is all coming up just in the next couple of months, guys. So get ready, get excited, get on showswhatyouknow.com for all that good stuff. And of course, jimandthem.com for more from Jim, awesomepedia.org for more from me, and anything else, Jim?
You already said hit us up at showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com.
I haven't broadcast that in years, but yes, you can email us. You can email us also. Hi. Yeah, say hi, say what's up, and leave a comment.
Yeah, you're an industry insider. Give us a scoop.
Give us a scoop. Give us some, what are they called? Screeners? Give us the early access.
Yeah, give us the early access. There are some people that have all the episodes of Dunkin' Egg, I believe. And again,
we could shit on shows before they even come out. You know? That would be revolutionary. But besides that, I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.